Okay, so we're going to start the second panel, and welcome back. Connecticut Civic Ambassadors are engaged in a great variety of civic and community projects and activities, all contributing to making our communities and our democracy stronger. During the PowerPoint slideshow this morning, you may have noticed some of the slides had highlighted some of the work of the civic ambassadors that are working all over the state to improve our communities. But to learn more about three of our finest civic ambassadors, I want to introduce our second panel, Connecticut Civic Ambassadors in Action. To introduce the panelists, please welcome the panel moderator, himself, the Connecticut Civic Ambassador, Mr. Richard Frieder. Please join me in welcoming them.
Thank you, Val, and good afternoon, everybody. Good to see you all here. So, as Val said, this panel is about Civic Ambassadors in Action. There are many great examples across the state of Civic Ambassadors doing great things. We have a few terrific examples, people representing great work being done up here on the stage today. Probably a number of you could have been up here, so maybe next year. But in the meantime, we do have these three wonderful stories that we're going to share with you. So my job is to introduce them and to manage things a little bit, and to bring us in on time or close to it. And Val has threatened me to be on time. And Val has a side that many of you don't see. No. But what we're going to do is we're going to show brief video clips describing the work of each of our guests here on the panel, and then talk with them. And we'll just do that consecutively. And I'm going to ask you to hold your questions to the end, just so that we can make sure to get all of them in first, and then we'll get to your questions. After each video, I'm going to ask them a couple of quick questions, and then we'll move on to the next panelist. So we will get started. So first, let me introduce our guests. On my left, your right, is Jackie McKinney. Jackie is a member of the Hartford Votes Coalition. She has been very active in different community and cultural organizations in Greater Hartford for many years, including Connecticut Landmarks, where she worked for a number of years, and she's also very active in ANA, which is the Asylum Hill Neighborhood Association. The NRZ is the Neighborhood Revitalization Zone for the Asylum Hill neighborhood. I believe you are the chair right now, is that right? Yes. Okay, great. I'm going to introduce everybody first. So please welcome Jackie. To my immediate right is our friend Elder Don Padgett. He is the founder and executive director of Hartford Community Leaders Development Corporation, a 501c3 nonprofit that implements a broad range of strategies to promote community health and development, including community-driven efforts to prevent violence, classes on how to find jobs, housing assistance, alcohol and substance abuse referrals, and basic financial literacy. He is also well known as an ordained elder and pastor, community activist, business owner, and radio and television personality. He is currently pastor of True Vine Church of Christ, Inc., Walk in the Light Deliverance Church in Hartford, and also business CEO of Executive Sound Entertainment, LLC. You are a busy guy. Elder Don and I have known each other for a long time, so I knew about most of this, but even I'm learning something here. He hosts a weekly current affairs public access and internet radio show called Hartford Community Leaders Talk, which airs on Hartford Public Access TV5 and East Hartford Public Access, as well as some radio stations. His show covers such topics as conflict resolution on contentious community issues, social justice, business and economic development, and community news and events. So please welcome Elder Don Padgett. Kent. He is an attorney with the New Haven law firm of Sussman, Duffy, and Siegeloff, and has been an activist and advocate for civil rights as well as community volunteer and leader. He is currently engaged with the Connecticut Collaborative on Poverty, Criminal Justice, and Race, and Congregations Organized for a New Connecticut, also known as Connect, which is spearheading its Clean Slate campaign. Mr. Kent also volunteers with the PEA? PEA, I'm sorry. The PEA project, a community garden he co-chaired for 5 years that donates half of its produce to local soup kitchens. So, welcome, Philip. So again, we're thrilled to have this terrific panel, and as I said before, we're going to start with the brief videos of each of their work, and then we'll talk about it. So, who are we doing first? John Padgett.
Harvard Community Leaders started in the year of 2014, bringing residents together in the city of Hartford to work on solutions that affects our community, such as violence, health, and education. We work with individuals, we work with faith-based organizations, service organizations, businesses, towards a better, greater Hartford community on issues that affects our lives on a daily basis. In 2014, we started to No More Fear Forum, bringing faith leaders together, organizations together, businesses together to talk about some of the solutions that's needed in the community. We talked about jobs, housing, mental health screening, substance abuse. We did surveys in the community, and we took those surveys, and what we found out, we needed to have more employment training, employment planning, the interview process, resume making. And so this is what we started to do in 2014 to set up a job and housing workshop in the community. And we had over 350 individual students and men and women in the community come out, and they were able to get jobs and talk with community organizations to get assistance and help. We met with these residents, planned with the residents, and basically come up with solutions to some of the problems that we encounter, such as jobs, housing, and mental health screening. Work with homelessness, work with different age groups such as children, students, middle school students, high school students, and also college students to address some of the needs in the community, such as preparing for high school, preparing for college, and just empowering the individuals to become better, that they can become good citizens and have a vibrant career. I'm proud to be Civic Ambassador. The reason why I wanted to join the Civic Ambassadors is because it's a way to communicate with the greater Hartford and the surrounding areas, to talk about what they've done in different cities that can help us in our city, and to work with those individuals on change. We need each other for change. We need each other to work together on a vibrant community, economic development in our community, to have leaders in our community. And so that's the reason why I'm a Civic Ambassador. It is important for individuals and people to get engaged, because change will happen. And the only way we can do that is work together with them to change those lives. And that's why we're here, to encourage one another, to motivate one another, to inspire one another, to be the best that we can be.
Thank you very much. So Elton, let's get started by, well, first, is there anything in particular you want to add to the video before I ask you a couple of questions?
I just want to thank everyone for allowing me to be here, an opportunity to represent for a greater Hartford community. And
Can you say just a few words about how Hartford Community Leaders got started?
Yes, we got started as a community group. We came in together with residents in the greater Hartford area and to come together to talk about some of the needs that we're facing in our community, such as jobs, housing, mental health security. All of these things affect our community in so many ways. It is a health crisis in our community. When you talk about the homicides that are happening, yearly, the vigils that we've attended, the funerals that we've attended. Matter of fact, yesterday I funeralized a 22-year-old young man who hadn't even started his life. That was just taken away. He was homeless. Homelessness in our community. Let's talk about homelessness with the veterans in our community. There are so many things that impact our communities. And this is why we wanted to come together with residents to come to work, not just to have a meeting, not just for the numbers, but just to come and provide solutions to some of the problems that we've been facing in our communities. And I'm telling you, by working in these circles with the different residents and working with them and planning with them, and we have people that care in our communities, that care about what happens in our community. And it touches my heart when I talk about some of the things that I've gone through in our community and seeing, and what we need to do is we need to come together as a people. We have lost the love for each other in our communities. There are so many older folks that have volunteered numerous of hours down through the years. But our young people are disengaged. And so I was able to, at that memorial, talk with over 50 young men, between young men and women, and encourage them to get involved in the community. That relationship, develop a relationship with those young men and women for economic development, for education, to strive to be the best that they can be in our communities and to get involved with each other in relationship.
Thank you. Can you talk a little about what you're most proud of? As I mentioned, you and I have worked together quite a bit. I'm familiar with some of the activities of Hartford Community Leaders, but you've done a lot over the years. What are you most proud of?
I'm most proud of is by serving. I'm a servant, and my job is to be able to help the community to, for economic development, to see, when I hear stories of a homeless man, we've gone out to the homeless shelters, we've talked to those individuals, we've held classes for those individuals, and when I can go out in the community and they see me, and they say, Elder Don, I appreciate you and your organization for coming out and speaking with me. Now I have an apartment. Now I have a job. Now and I'm a good citizen. Those type of stories that we hear of, encouraging stories, makes me want to do even more in our community.
And yes, you've accomplished a lot, but as we all know, the challenges are enormous, and they've been decades or even centuries in the making, so there's no quick answers. What worries you the most as you think about the coming months and years of Hartford Community Leaders? What concerns or worries you the most, other than money? We know that's across, everybody has that concern.
My concern is that our young men and women will become disengaged into the community, understanding of their culture. And that's one of my concerns, is that we have to be able to sit down with young people and to involve them as leaders in our community. we have some smart young men and women in our communities, but they're disconnected. They're disconnected. And so what we need to do as community folks and residents, we need to bring those individuals together, have them volunteer for some of the services that we do in our community. Have them work on your initiatives. And when they see other young people working on initiatives in our community, volunteering, volunteering for jobs and things like that, they can become engaged and become better and become civic ambassadors in our community. And I think that's one of my main concerns. The next main concern is that we have so much, a lot of main concerns, and I have a list of a lot of main concerns here on it. But we want to make sure that our community is a vibrant community and that we're not disconnected from the community and we're not left behind.
Great, thank you so much. So you may have questions for Elder Dunn, but as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to ask you to make a mental note or jot them down, and when we finish with all three of our panelists, we're going to open it up for questions and conversation. But right now, we're going to move on to our next panelist in the video, and our votes, Jackie. Okay.
Well, the Hartford Votes Vote Coalition is a coalition of about a dozen organizations and agencies that are committed to increasing voter engagement in Hartford. And we make a distinction between voter engagement and voter turnout. Voter turnout is part of voter engagement, but voter engagement is a bigger factor.
We don't focus on any one party or whatever. It's just get out the vote.
The coalition was established around 2003. Linda Bear and I first established it. And at first it was 2 or 3 organizations working together, and things evolved, and a few more organizations joined, and after a few years we made a name.
Well, our biggest event are the candidate forums.
Now we will begin with the candidates, and they're each going to stand in the middle of this floor here in front of where they're standing and give you a 1-minute introduction about why they're running and what's their most important issue.
Giving candidates an opportunity to meet their constituents and potential constituents, I think is very valuable.
Each year, elections are different. This year, the entire city council, as well as the mayor and other offices like treasurer, are all up for election. So we may tend to do more events this year. Last year, a lot of state offices were up for election, so we did quite a few. Then there will be years where there's only Board of Ed, and we might only do a couple of events. So.
I'd like to know what each of the mayoral candidates proposes, because the one in seat right now is pushing upon the unions these high deductible plans, and likewise in many companies.
Okay.
I'd like to know what each person thinks about that.
Periodically, we do get involved in education. You know, it's like, what does the city council do? What does the mayor do? What does the treasurer do? So we try and do some of that.
This year, for the first time at our candidate forums, we'll be using this note sheet that we'll hand out to all the participants. And this is a sheet on which participants can keep notes about candidates, about the issues that are important to each participant, and notes about what candidates have to say about those issues.
As Civic Ambassador is my opportunity to sort of give back to my community. You know, we live in the community, and it's important to be a part of the decision making, help the community have input in different civic projects.
Well, I think the Civic Ambassador program is really important and valuable because it recognizes the contributions that people who are civically engaged make. And generally, these contributions go unnoticed. So by being a civic ambassador and having opportunities to interact with other civic ambassadors, I learn about all kinds of things that are going on around the state that I might not have known of, and I get a chance to tell others about what we're doing, and that has the effect of growing the overall effort. So I think that there's real value to the civic ambassadors program.
By the way, a shout out to our own Val Ramos, who produced all of these videos. Or actually, I'm not sure that you produced Phil's video, so I'm giving you more credit, even more credit than you deserve. But yeah, okay. Jackie, you and I have worked together now on the Hartford Votes Coalition for I don't know how many years. It's got to be 10 anyway. I don't know. But what are you most proud of when you think back over what the Hartford Votes Coalition has done over all these years?
I would say education. You can certainly go and vote without being educated about who you're voting for or what that person does. But we've really focused every year on doing a little bit of education for people, young people coming in, to help them understand why they're voting. We worked not too long ago with our friend Linda, may she rest in peace. We worked with a group of young people between 18 and 20, and it happened to be the year the Board of Education candidates were up. And they learned about what the board did, why the board's important. Many of them had children, and so how that personally tied to them. And then they got to create their own program. So those are the kinds of things. Is you never know who you're going to touch. You may have 100 people go through, and one may you connect with one person who could significantly impact their community as they go forward.
Great, thanks. And what's coming down the pike in the not too distant future for the coalition?
Well, the 2020 election. I also happen to volunteer on election day, and everybody's getting nervous about 2020. It's amazing. Even the poll people are like, oh, do I really want to work that day? So what to do with the 2020 election? And again, education. What do we focus on that would maybe give people education that could entice them to come to vote? I think we certainly won't probably get the presidential candidates here to speak to our folks, but what can we do that would ensure that more people would come to the polls?
Thanks. And a challenge, I think it was mentioned earlier, but we're all very familiar with it, is how to increase voter engagement and voter turnout. There's really across the country, there's a problem in low voter turnout. Tends to be a more serious problem, a greater problem in urban areas, but certainly across the country, it's an issue. What are your thoughts on what has the Hartford Vote Coalition done to try to engage people and get them to come out and vote?
I think the education is probably the little times that we've stopped and educated people. Why are you doing this? What do these people do who you're voting for? I think probably that has the longest lasting effect on the community.
Right, and if I can add, since you and I are partners on the work of the coalition, we learned something very interesting and important several years ago when we operate, we're almost entirely volunteer, and operate on almost no money. In fact, when we have events, we're not sure where the money is going to come from to buy bags of chips. But about 5 years ago, we did succeed in getting a grant. It was federal money through the state to do a Latino voter engagement project. And we learned something really important, and that project happened to target the Latino community, but could have been anybody. What we learned is true for anybody. And that is that a way to get more people to vote is, drum roll, are you ready? Talk to them. Eureka, what a shock. But seriously, our project was based on projects that had been done in Detroit and somewhere else out west, was it Arizona? I think it was Arizona, yeah. So we weren't breaking brand new ground, but we learned the same thing they learned, but it was valuable to learn it, which is if you go out before elections and talk to people, which we did because we had some funding, we were able to go door to door, do some canvassing, totally nonpartisan, and just talk with people about voting and make sure they were registered and they knew where to vote and when. That there was about a 5% increase in voter turnout in the areas where we went out and talked to people. And that by itself is not a huge deal, 5%, although, you know, it's good. But if you do that year after year, you really have a big impact. So I know one of our goals of the coalition is to, said before, I asked before about what do you want other than money. Well, now I'm going to talk about the coalition. We'd like to get money so that we can do more of that work and have more of an impact on voter turnout. So, Jackie, anything else you want to add right now?
Oh, just changing the subject. I was thinking about my volunteering. One of the more interesting things that I volunteered is on the I-84 project. The viaduct of I-84 has gotten old and it will fall down if we don't do something with it. And that's been a real education. It doesn't sound well. You're just talking about concrete and steel. But the impact a piece of highway can have on so many hundreds of thousands of people's lives, it really is impressive. So that was been one of my most favorite.
Great, thank you. Okay, that goes down to Phil. He's going to be next. So thank you, Jackie. And again, jot down or make a mental note of your questions. We're going to get to them. And now we will watch our third video and then talk with Phil.
People will say, leave your feelings at home. That's very difficult to do sometimes. Because what this means to me is everything. Everything.
1 in 3 Connecticut residents have some type of criminal record. Any record, no matter how old or minor, can stand in the way of jobs, housing, education, and more. For people like Roxburgh, the economic and emotional trauma can follow you for decades.
My record dates back to 1987. I was arrested, and I was a substance abuser. There was no counselor, there was no... It was just me.
In the decades after her release, Roxburgh got clean and tried to rebuild her life. She got her undergraduate degree in human services and tried to start her career. But at every turn, her record stood in her way.
I went looking for jobs, and every door that could possibly close was slammed in my face. When I began to do the social work, I learned that I couldn't get licensed. There is a waiver process, but it's designed to deter the employer. Because they're saying to the employer, this is who you're dealing with. Do you really want to deal with that? In order for me to measure up to what people who have my degree and credentials, in order for me to measure up financially, I have to work 2 full-time jobs.
Roxburgh started Connecticut's expedited expungement process that's supposed to let her have the career she's worked so hard to start. But she's been waiting 6 months.
Now, my application sits, as of yesterday, waiting for someone to take it. They've had my application since around the end of January completed successfully, but no one's said anything.
A new bill introduced in Connecticut called the Clean Slate Act would make expungement for people like Roxburgh automatic after they remain crime-free for a set period of time. Then they can move on with their lives and provide for their families.
What clean slate means to me, it means the world to me. Because then I can celebrate and say, I'm free.
Roxburgh has learned from her past. It's time Connecticut does too. Go to cleanslatecampaign.org to learn more.
Great, thank you. Phil, would you like to add anything to the video? Maybe kind of a little more context?
I'll tell you a couple of things. Roxburgh, or Tammy King, is one of the Tammy King is one of the fiercest advocates that I have had the pleasure to work with, and I can report to you at long last, if she were here, she would hold up her pardon certificate and tell you that she finally has received her pardon. So she is not done fighting for clean slate because she knows that it's more than just about her and her ability to move on with her life. She's gone through the process. She sees the problems with the existing pardon process and the struggles that she had to go through to be able to get that clean slate or that expungement for herself. And our bill is going to change that process and make it a lot smoother and better for the thousands of people if it gets back. Great, thank you.
Hold on to those questions, we're almost there. Phil, tell us just a little about how did you get involved in this? How did that get started?
Well,
The reason I ask, and I asked the question of other panelists too, is that we're all civic ambassadors, and part of what we're doing here today is showing great examples of the great work that civic ambassadors are doing. So I think people will be interested to know your story and how you got involved.
so I come from, I've been doing this work in different ways for about 20 years, maybe a little bit more. I was a Teach for America teacher in the 90s in New York City in the 1996 Corps. I did my 2 years of teaching, which you do at TFA, and I decided I wanted to make a bigger impact. So in my wisdom, I decided I'd go to law school and had this big dream of having impact. And of course, I became a private lawyer for as a way to fulfill the dream that I went to school for. I started doing all kinds of public service projects on the side of that. Fast forward many years, around 2016, I got involved in a campaign with Connect. Just tell you a little bit about Connect. It is congregations organized for a new Connecticut. Started, long before I got there, around 2011, as a faith-based, multi-faith, Jewish, Christian, Muslim, Sikh organizations. There's about 28 organizations that are part of Connect, multiracial, multi-ethnic, and all about grassroots organizing, listening to people's personal stories, finding what their issues are, and then coalescing around, as Elder Don said, around solutions for those issues, whether that be legislative or otherwise. I got involved in a campaign that was aimed at a very violent bar and restaurant in my town of Camden. We did not hesitate to file a petition with the state of Connecticut and take their liquor license away and shut this place down, which made that neighborhood a much better place. A few years later, I became co-chair of this criminal justice team of Connect, and we started doing the same thing, listening to stories, figuring out what we're going to do. We were looking at the bail issue. We were looking at pretrial voting rights issues. And then we finally settled on this concept of taking a look at people's criminal records and the effect that it has on them.
Great, thank you, thanks. And what's coming up in the next year or so for Connect and the Clean Slate campaign?
So we've been doing this for probably about a year and a half. We went through the entire legislative session in the 2019 session, which just ended last June. We came very, very close to getting the legislation passed, but we came up against the wall. At the end of that legislative session, you either get through or you don't, right? And then you gotta, you know, if you don't, you come back and you do it again. So right now, we continue to have meetings with our champion legislators, Senator Winfield and State Representative Staffstrom, who are the two co-chairs for the Judiciary Committee with the legislature. They are 100% behind this bill, and we are now told that the governor is going to be putting forth a clean slate bill as well, and it'll be one of his priorities in this upcoming legislative session.
Great, thank you. Well, I could go on and on asking questions, but we've made sure to leave a significant amount of time for your questions and have some conversation. Somebody was running around with a microphone earlier. Okay, so if you'd like to ask a question, you can go to either microphone, is that right? Yes. There's one over here and one over here. And let's get going. So let's start here, and then we'll alternate. Please go ahead.
Begin by saying thank you to all of you and the hard work that you're doing. My question was, with the conversations you've had, Elder Don, what's your name again? How did you find the receptiveness once you came up with these ideas with the residents from folks that could implement some of the things that you were hoping to do? What was the responsiveness of city council members, of state representatives, and things of that nature? Because I often find like things bubble up, but they also fizzle out if there's no responsiveness from government to implement some of the things that you would hope for.
One of the things that I would like to say is that in 2014 when we started and we planned with the residents of Hartford and the greater Hartford area, and we had city council members come in to assist us with the planning. And also we had organizations that came together to work for the change, and businesses came together. And one of the good things about it, we were able to sit down and they provided laptops for us, over 20 laptops for us, and we sat with residents and created resumes for these individuals, gave them information on how to go about job searches, how to search the websites for jobs, and do referrals, and how to dress for success. We even had a segment in the Job and Housing Workshop where we had individuals that didn't know how to tie ties. And you just imagine a lot of individuals don't know how to tie a tie, men and women. And so those things, but the residents came together, and we have businesses that supported. When you talk about doing an event and you talk about thousands of dollars doing an event, we had $0 doing an event. It was all community. We had businesses coming providing food. I mean, it was, you talk about the food back there, that's how much food we had, for individual pizza, you name it. And it wasn't about just the food, but it was about educating those individuals, so that they can take back to their community and to get help for themselves.
Thank you.
I also noticed that you guys wanted to increase voting and stuff of that nature. How do you feel about people that are voting down ballot versus they're still actively engaged, but they're not liking the candidates or not liking the policies that these candidates are coming with? What's your take on that? Because you can still actively engage, but vote down the ballot if they don't like what's being represented. So can you please clarify that and explain that? I would like to hear that.
Can you define what down ballot means?
Voting down ballot means that you will put something in place of that candidate, or you will leave it blank or mark it blank, saying that this candidate did not support the values or did not represent me, did not have the policies or anything that represent me. So what is your take on that? No, you can vote down ballot. I've done it.
You can.
So you never did.
I don't know. Do you have have an opinion on that. I think it's a freedom, no, I don't have an opinion. Certainly, people should have the freedom to vote however they want, even down ballot. I suspect, and this is only because I work at the polls, so there's nothing scientific about that we don't do a lot of that in Hartford.
Well, you might want to, because if the candidates are not.
I'm not saying it's right or wrong, yeah.
I'm just saying, if the candidates are not representing the values of the citizens and the constituents of the community, why on earth would you even co-sign them? Oh,
Yeah.
so why did how come down ballot was not even an option?
No, it is an option.
But do you educate the people about down balloting and stuff of that nature?
Probably.
Well, we haven't, but we certainly could in the future. Yeah, we're entirely, the Hartford Votes, Hartford Vote Coalition is entirely about education. We're nonpartisan, and it's all about increasing voter engagement. So we occasionally do educational programs in addition to candidate forums. So that could be the topic for an educational program.
When you also say nonpartisan, you also said that you specifically did something for the Latino community and did a project. What about those that are saying about a black agenda? Saying that what are you doing specifically for black folks that went through the sins of slavery and stuff of that nature? And that is, how come you're not educating the black constituents about that and their rights about that? Or have you? I'm not familiar with you guys, or if God forbid, no disrespect.
No, I know. But
Yeah.
one of the things is our focus has always been narrow, mainly because of money, and we don't have staff. And so when you start, we just went through November. Now it's time to get ready for next November. We hardly have money for potato chips. So what we tend to do is focus very narrowly on what we're going to do, because we really don't have the capacity to do anything bigger, which would be the kind of education item that you're talking about. We just don't have the capacity to do that.
Well,
Not
the
that it's
stuff,
right or wrong,
stuff I got off of YouTube and
Yeah.
actually went to school and other things of that nature. So like, I'm kind of concerned, like, what is the message, or how are you misguiding somebody in their voting process?
Well, no, I'm going to add a little to what Jackie said, and then we have to move on
Okay,
to a
yeah.
number of people. But our educational programs are intended for everybody. Doesn't matter who you are or what color your skin is or how much money you have. We have a quite diverse group that does the planning. We listen to the community as much as we can to find out what people are thinking about and talking about and want to find out more about. And we promote very heavily throughout Hartford. So our activities really are not directed to this part of the population or that. The Latino voter education project, frankly, was a grant opportunity. And that's the reason that we focused on the Latino community. I can't think of anything else that we've done that's been focused on one segment of the community. So.
Okay. When you said that, it channels and looks different for other people. That's all. Okay, I'm sorry about that.
Well, no, that's okay. Well, we're here to talk and hear ideas, and if there are some misperceptions about what we're doing, we're glad to discuss it. So thank you. We're going to move on to our next question over here. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Tracy Bernardi, and one of the things that I like to tell people, I don't like that this is in my history, but I served a 30-year sentence. I served 23 years off of it, and I'm out here with you right now. My point is, when you go in, you do eventually come out, and the clean slate is a beautiful thing, but the clean slate perpetuates the idea that there should be carve-outs, and in our country and in our state and everywhere else, double jeopardy is illegal for the court systems to do, but it's certainly legal for society to alienate formerly incarcerated people, and I appreciate what you guys are doing with the clean slate. However, as many people as clean slate might help, clean slate could help so many more, and the idea that it's separated, and it's separated between violent and non-violent offenders is really unfair, because if the judge thought that I should be in jail for life, I would be in jail for life. And the fact that I'm home, I should be allowed to have a future. And to exclude felons from the clean slate bill it perpetuates the idea that there should be some division between humanity. And I personally don't think there is. I know that there's supporters that some of the main supporters on this are for it started out felons and non-felons, and then it went down to just misdemeanors.
Not in Connecticut.
So what is it in Connecticut?
Yeah, so I very much appreciate your perspective, and I can tell you there's a lot of internal tension in our group about, when we're proposing language to the legislature, right, what should that say and what should it include? Because our ideal, I think, resonates with exactly what you're saying, but we're also having to deal with what might be called clean slate 1.0, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do we get
2.0, 1.0 already exists. I did that already.
Thanks. But the point is, the legislation that we're proposing right now proposes to build on the framework of the timeframes that are used by the current Board of Pardons and Paroles, which is that you be eligible for clean slate for most misdemeanors 3 years after you've served your time if you remain crime-free, and for certain felonies 5 years after you've served your time if you remain crime-free. That doesn't mean that we don't want to do more than that, right? But we also have to deal with the political reality on the ground. What can we get passed? What can we make into law? And then when can we come back and do more than that?
I work with ACLU Smart Justice. I'm a
Right.
Smart Justice leader, and I can tell you that it's more of, it shouldn't be about what they're going to accept. It should be what we're going to make them accept. We got to hold people accountable to their positions, to their jobs, and if we segregate and we keep people separate, then so is everybody else, and they're going to say that's okay. And so for me, as I think that it's a great thing to be doing, but then you have to look at the backside of it too. Are you going to close the loopholes of, no matter what I do, no matter how many times my name has been in the paper for good things since I've come home, my crime always stays on the top. So if I get my record expunged, if I do anything like that, what can you do to circumvent? I mean, really, the root of it should be to hold the society accountable, people in society accountable for alienating people based on their record. That's a bias that should not be acceptable, and I don't know. For me, I don't want to talk forever.
Thank you. No, we agree with you, and we are working with folks with Smart Justice. So I'd certainly love to talk with you more and have you interface with our group and see what we can talk about. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And please, that's a good point. Everybody, I'm sure all of our panelists would love to talk further because we are going to run out of time at some point. But feel free to come up and talk with our panelists who I believe will be around for the rest of the day, today, the rest of the event. 2 more questions. Okay. Yes.
Okay, so I'm gonna help you guys out to answer his question. In 2010, I used to be a Hartford Gold member under a Better Way Foundation, and in 2010, 2011, 2013, we did specifically poor and minority voter outreach, targeting the African American community in the north end of Hartford, Park area, and the west end of Hartford. So, boom, 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 boom.
Thank you.
And for the clean slate, I do have a question. Because my question is, and I worked with Senator Winfield when he was Representative Holder Winfield, and they gave me the same comment years ago, it's just not your time. I have a manslaughter 2 charge that I received in 93. I got convicted in 95 after being in jail from 93 to 95 because my bond was high. It was self-defense. There is no self-defense clause in Connecticut except for when you're in your vehicle and you have an armed gun. You can actually shoot somebody and kill them if they try to carjack you. But if you're in your home and you're trying to defend your home, Connecticut says it's not self-defense if you can run out the other door. You gotta be trapped, right? And so when you're thinking about this clean slate bill, are you considering mental health and domestic people? Because I suffer from combat PTSD and psychosomatic seizures. And prior to my crime, I had suffered from PTSD and youth trauma and abuse, and it didn't properly was addressed, which led to me not knowing how to properly handle myself when I was encountered with violence, right? I became violent myself. So I don't want to hear anymore after being home 20 years, giving back to my society for 20 years, serving my 6-year term fully after a 10-year sentence, that I have to wait. I don't need to wait anymore. I'm done waiting. It should be clean slate regardless, because it doesn't make a difference. And listen, I get what we can pass now, we'll pass it later. And I'm telling you, I have a nonprofit lobbying company that I started because of this conversation. The legislators, the politicians, since we're talking about civic engagement, does not dictate to us what they're going to do for us. The power is in the vote and the voter. We dictate to them what we want them to do for us. And therefore, for that clean slate bill, sir, can you please go back to your people and say, there are people who've been out here for 20 years and stronger saying, no more carve-outs. We want everybody included. There's been the 3 years for minimum and 5 years for felonies. That's been going on since we started having parties. What we're looking for is people who've been out of jail longer than 10 years, regardless of their crime and their felony, get automatic expungement, especially those who've been active in community getting back. I have a provisional pardon, but if you Google my name, my crime comes up. Not my 20-year anniversary of successful reentry, not my certificate of accomplishment for 15 years of services to the General Assembly as a community advocate, organizer, and grassroots lobbyist. Not all the stuff I did for the youth and youth engagement in Hartford, New Britain, Bridgeport, New Haven, Waterbury, the colleges, none of that. What comes up is manslaughter 2 that happened in 1993. I'm 47, happened when I was 21. So I'm saying, while we're engaging people like me, some of us have been home already, don't keep sugarcoating the issue. It's 2019, we're going to 2020. It's time to fight fair, fight for all. That's what civic engagement is.
Thank you.
I'll just say one thing. I'll just say, come to the Capitol with us and tell your story to the legislators, because they need to hear that, right? They need to hear the passion from you, and to understand that you are not the person that you were whenever that happened, right? And that you deserve the opportunity, just like anybody else, to come back from that and to be a full citizen, being able to participate in whatever job you want, whatever house you want to live in, whatever school you want to go back to school to, whatever you want to do, right? I'm with you. And that's all I can say. But, please engage with us. Come tell your story. That is civic engagement. Telling it here, I think, is important. Telling it on the day of the public hearing, also very important. Going up there with us, talking to legislators in the hallways and saying, you know what, we want you to do even more, right? And we deserve it. I think that's super important. And thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you. One more question. Please keep it brief, because we have to be aware of all the people who also want to ask questions.
Yeah, we're going to go over here because we said we would alternate. So.
My question was answered during the speak about homeless people being counted in their housing shelter. My name is Pamela. I would like to say that Jackie said you never know who you're going to touch. And when I went out on break, a citizen came to me and said she recognized me from television interview that I did. I don't think I realized I was being interviewed. She applauded me for saying that this is what homelessness looks like and that this is what hunger looks like. She applauded me for a misquote. I never said that I'm against cops in warming centers. I'm against cops in the Willie Ware warming center if it's going to be the only overnight warming center in the city. Because if you put cops in that small space, you're going to accommodate less people people, and most people are going to be outside. I am homeless. I've been homeless for 8 months. My journey began at the Willie Ware Warming Center. I am still homeless. I'm educating myself on advocacy and resources. One of the issues was a lack of income. And I'm going to say it. My retirement pension just started. I'm 62, and I'm very fortunate that I have that pension coming to me because it's going to help me move forward. I would also like to say that one of the ladies at the table had food that she didn't want, and she offered it to me, and I said, I'll take it back to the shelter. The women will be so happy. And another woman heard me say that, and she gave me her lunch. So if you don't want lunch, and you can give me a ride back to the shelter with all that food, I'd be happy to take it up.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I'm sorry we're out of time. I know Val is going to transition us here, but I just want to thank our panelists. Terrific job. And these are just great examples of what civic ambassadors are doing. And I know that you all, I mean, everybody in here is a civic ambassador. So keep up the great work. And thank you for the great questions and comments, terrific conversation. And we'll turn it back over to Val.
Thank you so much again. So, unfortunately, we won't have time for a break because we're running about 25 minutes now. But in the meantime, let's bring the other panel here, and if you can take a couple of minutes to use the restroom and come back right away, we would appreciate that. But we want to get started as soon as possible because we have a great keynote speaker who is dying to talk. Please take a couple of minutes if you need to go to the restroom, otherwise we'll be starting the next panel very shortly.
Please reach out.
Absolutely. We're trying to give people out for 10 to 15 years where we have Where are you from? You're from Connecticut? Okay, go to your town. You're going to have to get down.